On March 11th, 2024, I was flying this airplane from Florida to Ohio and had to make an emergency landing.
Spark me up. So I have a gear issue.
But I'm going to share with you what was not on that video. I started flying about 4 years ago and have acquired my private pilot single engine rating, my commercial pilot multi-engine rating, all with instrument, and about 500 hours of total flight time. I've owned and flew 7 airplanes in the last 4 years, a Cherokee 180, a Cherokee 6, 2 Beechcraft Sierras, this Lance Air right here, a Piper Apache, the Silver Bullet, the 310, and the Blue Tarp Special, a Piper Aztec. Now, despite the antics that you see on my show, I take safety extremely seriously. And honestly, that's why I'm so hands-on with all the maintenance and repairs of these airplanes. Look, I know I'm at a higher risk than most people just because of the nature of the airplanes that I deal with. These are old airplanes that have had some questionable maintenance history, and many of them haven't flown for quite a while. For those of you that have not followed for the past couple of years around this 310, let me give you a quick update. It started when I bought these 3 airplanes in Pennsylvania, and this old 310 came out of that barn, and because I lost the coin flip, thus began Save the 310. Many of you really wanted me to save that airplane, so I started a GoFundMe, and you generously gave $35,000. In that time, we spent that money, a lot, all of it.
Disaster, disaster, disaster.
Just to get to the point where we found and discovered there's more corrosion in that airplane than I would feel comfortable flying, and I definitely would not feel comfortable other people flying in that airplane. So we donated that airplane to a fantastic school here in Lakeland so that other people can learn how to repair and work on airplanes. So to fulfill my obligation for the Save the 310, I found the Silver Bullet. And I paid $35,000 for that. Once we got it back to Florida, I spent another at least $35,000 on it, getting it ready to go to Oshkosh. Since I've owned that airplane, it has served others and helped them get their multi-engine license and training. It has brought the crew around to the different projects that we've been working on. It has served a great mission. However, the reason that I was taking it to Ohio is because I'm selling it for a 1 penny no reserve on airspace auctions. You can see the link in the description below, but that's not why we're here. You see, I'm going on a trip to the Bahamas in May, and this airplane, none of my airplanes, even this one back here, this one only seats 2 people. The 310 only seats realistically 4 people, and I've got 5 people in my family, so I can't take them on this trip, so I have to find something bigger. Speaking of the Bahama trip, I want somebody to join me May 9th through the 13th. Every $5 you spend on SaveThe310.com gets you 1 entry. We're giving away a trip to join us and to go with us. You don't need your own airplane. We just got to get you to Fort Lauderdale, and then you can hop in with us and we will take care of the rest for you. You can go into SaveThe310.com, get all the details there. If you just want to make sure you get your spot and go with us to the Bahamas, then you can just sign up and pay the Bahama Department of Tourism directly. Again, all that stuff is on SaveThe310.com. The technical, there is no purchase necessary for how that works. Go read the fine print at SaveThe310.com. Now back to the rest of the video. Doing YouTube videos, I have to continue to get newer projects in the door because, let's face it, once you see this project a handful of times, people start losing interest in it, and we have to find it a new mission and keep moving and getting new inventory in, and that's just the natural life of this YouTube project world. And I did find one up in Ohio that you will see on the very next video, and it's pretty freaking awesome. Had a bunch of things that I was not aware of because I, in Jimmy's World fashion, bought it sight unseen, but we'll get into that video later. This one's about the 310. My biggest fear in the entire world is that someone will be flying one of these airplanes that have been saved on Jimmy's World and will crash and hurt themselves or even kill themselves. So before I sell the 310, I found the #1 twin Cessna shop in the entire world, TAS, in Defiance, Ohio, and they have agreed to go through the whole thing to make sure that it is as safe and as everything is up to snuff as much as humanly possible. So that's why I was taking it to Ohio, to have them go through it, to give it their stamp of approval. So you know, and everybody knows, that that airplane has been gone through by the best of the best and the most scrutinizing eyeballs known to man. Which brings us to the fateful day on March 11th, 2024. A little voice in me was saying, Jimmy, check the landing gear. I naturally did not listen to that little voice inside my head, and that was my first mistake. I did not trust, but verify. Anytime I fly, I always check 3 things: myself, the weather, and the airplane. And I only give myself 3 strikes, and I'm out. So if I'm not feeling good, if the weather's questionable, or if there's an issue with the airplane, I'm out. On this day, I was feeling really good. So person-wise, me, I was good. There was no extra stress on me. I wasn't in a hurry to get any place or nothing like that. Good to go there, check. The weather, it was fantastic weather all the way from here to Ohio, which you do not get in March, by the way. There was a bit of a headwind, about a 15-knot headwind, but not the end of the world, not too crazy. But clear as could be. I mean, not a cloud between us and Ohio, which is very rare indeed. That's why I chose that day to attempt to go. Then the airplane. There was a couple of issues here. #1, the airplane has not been flown for about 8 months. That's a big strike because you don't know what's going to happen. You can pre-flight it all day long, but you don't ever know until that thing gets in the air. The second thing, and the most dangerous thing, is that it was the first flight after maintenance. Anytime you read all these other channels that do all these airplane crash things, if it's not the weather, it's because it was the first flight after maintenance is when a plane crashed. And this one had been sitting for a while, and it was the first flight after maintenance. That was 2 strikes. Took off here from Florida, no problem. Everything worked great. Flipped a little switch up, zzz, dunk, no problem. Flew all the way, a little bit of a headwind like I was saying, but other than that, everything worked fantastic. Landed, made a normal landing, everything was great. Pulled in, got fuel, checked the oil, looked over the airplane really good again, looked in the landing gear, looked in all the places, the flight controls, everything. Money, and everything was nice and good. I even took my time when I landed and got a little candy bar and drank a bottle of water, went to the bathroom, just kind of chilled a little bit because I was making normal time and wanted to make sure I was not in a hurry. Time for takeoff from fuel stop #1. Everything was going up, airspeed was alive, all the engine instruments were in the green, great, pull back, it starts lifting off, go to hit the gear up switch, it goes bzzz, and then I noticed it took a little longer before the white light came up showing me that the gear was up and locked. And as soon as I noticed that it was taking a little bit longer, I got a smell of burning electrical wires.
And things started moving, but the light never came on, and I got a burning electric smell.
The #1 fear of all pilots is an in-cockpit electrical fire, because that can go really bad, really fast. I immediately pulled the gear breaker to stop any power from going to that gear motor, and thankfully, the burning smell went away quickly after that, so I knew that my risk of fire was taken care of. I wasn't worried about that anymore. However, the gear was not all the way up. and I could look out and see in the mirror and in the reflection, because Sparrowhawk, those guys are awesome, and they polished this sucker up so nice that it was a mirror, and I could see all 3 gears still down about this far. They hadn't made it all the way up and closed yet, so everything was still kind of open and a lot of drag on that. I also knew that the way the manual gear work on this, the gear crank, it only goes down. You can't crank the gear up with the hand crank. You can only let the gear down with the hand crank. And that all happened within seconds of taking off. It happens really fast. Okay, so going over my options. Number 1, am I gonna catch on fire? No, because the fire smell went away and the breaker was pulled. Second, what's gonna happen when I push that thing in and see if the gear motor will work again, or if something bound up in the gear? I didn't know if something physically popped in the gear because of the work that had happened on it previously, or just because the motor burned up. I didn't know. I didn't know why that motor burned up. Worst case scenario is I'm gonna have to belly land this thing in because the gear is stuck and can't go down, which also means a massive ball of fire because I just filled up the gas tanks. So I now have to burn off all kinds of gas before I could even think about landing. So here's my options of where to land. I could go back and land at the airport that I just took off from, but I'd have to circle it for 3 hours, or I could go to my next fuel stop, which would have been further away from home, and honestly there's not a lot of services at that airport, so I would have been stuck there if it would have either belly landed or landed and I would have just been stranded there, so I didn't really want to be stranded there. Unfortunately, I did not have enough fuel to make it all the way to TAS. Otherwise, frankly, that's probably what I would have done because they're the people that were going to be fixing it anyway, so might as well just fly it to them and let them fix it. The final option is turn around and fly all the way back to Florida, where I just came from. And that's what I decided to do because I had a tailwind helping me. A 15-knot headwind turned into a 15-knot tailwind. I also knew this is where all of my resources are. So if I was going to have an issue, this is where I would want it to be. And I know the airports. I also know that 7 miles that way is a huge 10,000-foot runway that has all the fire trucks and everything you could ever imagine. So if I was going to belly crash something in, I wanted it to be over there. And I had 3 hours to think about all of the possible scenarios that were going to happen. If I'm honest, my biggest fear at this point was putting the gear down and then having an engine issue, because this airplane will not climb if the gear is down and I have to turn off one of these engines. That means I am going down. Whether I like it or not, there's nothing I can do about it. If the gear is down and I have an engine issue, I'm going to land somewhere very quickly. That's why I made the decision to leave the gear up as much as possible so that the airplane could still be as aerodynamic as possible, so that if I had an engine issue, that it would give me more options to potentially be able to make it to an airport to land safely. Those 3 hours gave me time to refresh my memory on all of the emergency procedures for the 310, which I did. As a pilot and knowing this airplane really well, you already had a lot of that drilled into your head, but I had 3 hours to kill, no pun intended. So I might as well refresh my memory on all these emergency procedures because I was getting ready to use them. I mean, I started thinking about the worst case scenario, right? I come into land, something happens, whether fire or it catches or something goes wrong, and I, for some reason, get seriously injured or killed. What do I want to say as my last words? And since I had GoPros in the airplane, here they are.
If for some reason I'm not able to make it, Evie, I love you very much, and it is truly the love of my life. Silas, you're going to grow up to be a wonderful young man. You already are. Gently, little fire. Use that fire for good. And Noah, full tilt Noah, you're going to have lots of friends and you're going to do a lot of big things in life. And I'll see you soon.
Coming close to home, getting ready to make my initial pass. Here's the plan. I was going to fly over the airport first to have the guys on the ground look up with binoculars to see if they could see anything physically binding on the gear, or if there was a door or something that was jammed, which I still didn't know. If they found something, we could deal with it. If they didn't find anything, next pass was going to be to crank the gear down manually and get it to lock. If there was any question about whether all 3 gears were down and very locked, like everything felt right and he had all the right noises and feels and everything else, if there was any question, then I was going to fly over again, let them look, just to confirm whether it was locked and all 3 of them were locked. If, for some reason, there was still any question, I was already headed straight to Lakeland, and I was going to call the tower and let them know what was going on so they can roll the fire trucks, foam that runway, and I was going to skid however far this airplane was going to skid whenever I landed there. Now that would have meant some Amazon packages being late, I admit, but at least I would have been alive. Probably.
Runway 10, Plant City.
Echo Bravo 762 is looking at your gear too. Once you're a little closer, we'll have a visual.
Hey, affirmative, appreciate it.
And we're heading down to 281 Bravo Lima, left downwind, runway 5. We're heading.
762 also has pipeline inside, no factor.
Plant City Unicom 310 Echo Bravo. Currently my gear is partially down, but I will be going around. I'm going to try to do a manual gear extension, and then if I get a green, come in and land. Plant City.
Plant City, pipeline 34 Echo. We're just northwest. We've got the final traffic.
Okay, so let's get into a downwind.
Thankfully, cranked on that thing. All the gears came down. It got really hard at one point, and that's what I was thinking, something was bound up in there, and that's what caused the issue.
And I got to crank like crazy and make sure I don't get slow.
Short final 10, full stop taxi back Plant City.
Oh, golly. Something just came unstuck. Oh, golly, that is hard to do. Okay, I've got a green.
Because I was cranking and I was pushing, I knew that handle is not super strong. It's supposed to just fall down almost, and the handle, if you let go of it, just goes boom. So it was supposed to go down really easy, but man, it got to one spot that was really tough to crank, and finally something popped a little bit and got it to crank and go all the way down. It gave me a nice solid clunk, nice green light, clunk clunk. And because Sparrowhawk did such an awesome job polishing it, I could see all 3 landing gear in the reflection of the tip tank out there and see that all 3 looked like they were down and locked, which meant time to make a normal landing.
Okay, I've got a green, and it went as far as it could. Over the road, we got the airport in sight. Green is down.
Up the traffic, shot 5181 Echo with 5 to the
We're going to land like normal.
Right down runway 15.
All right. Pumps check, gas. Those pumps are on. Gas is in the right tanks, all right. Undercarriage, I think, is down and locked. We got mixtures are up, props are up. Bring our power, kind of get that settled in. There we go. We got our wind is already checked. We got a direct crosswind, that's fun.
I knew that I had to make as perfect of a landing as possible to be real easy on the gear, because any sudden jerks to it, that gear could collapse and then all this would have been for naught.
All right, here we go. Plant City traffic 310 Echo Bravo, short final 10 Plant City, fingers crossed. Look down the runway. Woo. So far so good. And let's keep it straight. And this thing feels like it's all early.
Plant City 76, left base, 10, Plant City.
Alright, mixture's back for lean, fuel pumps are off.
If there was any gear issues, it would have happened, but thankfully, praise the Lord, it stayed up on all three, and then I made it to the end of the runway, slowing down, pulled off.
On the wheels, we're going to be very gentle as we make this turn. Alright. Plant City traffic, 310 Echo Bravo, clear of runway 10, Plant City.
Woohoo! Brought it over to the hangar, and this is what we found. Here comes the big reveal.
Hold on, I want to get
Ready?
Yep.
So these right here are the brushes. Oh, right there. That's the problem. That wire came off of the brush. That little thing down in there is the brush. So the electricity goes to this, which sends electricity to this, which then through some witchcraft and magicry does things with like electromagnetic fields and stuff. Right there is the problem. So this one, and it's a spring on there that pushes it in. So right there is the brush, and you see how it's connected to that one? Right there. That side is not connected. Yeah, right there, that's the problem. And if this is just a spring, so we open it up, get out. There it is. That. And you have an armature inside and a commutator that runs on. Oh man, that is, dude, that's got some chunks missing out of it. Oh yeah.
I can smell it from here.
Yeah, that boys and girls is what we call broke. 2 more landings. That's all I needed. That's what's the difference? Is broke? It's not broke. It's old and busted, like your mom. We got the motor replaced, inspected. We're doing it all legal like. Now comes the critical part. We gotta make the gears go up and down, and we're gonna do that a bunch of times. If this works, we can zoom on north to TAS to go drop this off because they're gonna look over it, and then to look at the other airplane that I bought. If this doesn't go well, then I don't know, honestly. So let's just get at it and see what happens. Okay, Silas, here goes nothing. Take the gear switch and go up.
That is beautiful.
Okay, and gears coming down. Go ahead. Yeah, coming down should be easy. There's no... Green light. Go ahead and gear up. All right, down. Looks good to me, my friend.
Looks good to me.
I feel much more comfortable because the last time I did have that little spirit, you know, that little voice inside saying, Jimmy, you should do a gear swing before you leave. You should do a gear swing before you leave. And I'm like, nah, it'll be fine. What could possibly go wrong? And I found out what could go wrong, actually, and it sucked.